Can start recording.
Yep.
Yeah, so well, welcome to the Wednesday night sync session where we're just going to go round robin to see what people have on their minds, of anything at all.
Yeah. Well, I kind of started thinking a little bit about what kind of questions I have in terms of my preliminary statement. In other words, like questions that I want to try and answer.
Mm-hmm.
I put together a Tiddly wiki.
Sounds pretty good to me. You can share your screen and share it with us.
Okay. Let's see. Share screen. And let me locate it here. There we go. Share the browser. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So I figured I'd start using Tiddly wiki as my means of sort of getting everything like out there and roughed out and starting to use it as a tool to help me think through and get started with stuff and sort of record it along the way using the journaling feature and things like that to sort of.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's a great idea. Well, hoping it works and you can start adding things like tags and stuff as it comes along.
Yep. So I started doing some of that, set up fiddlers for the assignments, and kind of started to do a little bit of like thinking out loud as to some of the questions that I want to answer, try and sort of flesh out a little more what I'm envisioning in my head. So I just sort of sat down this afternoon and asked myself, a couple different questions that I felt were leading towards my ultimate goal for this. So I came across this quote by Richard Feynman.
Yep.
I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him at all. He worked on stuff like the Manhattan Project. He's a physicist, and he's done a lot of pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, Feynman's a very cool guy.
Yeah. So I kind of liked his quote of, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned.
Yeah.
So that kind of like set me off into thinking, all right, I need to figure out what my questions are and then begin to find the answers to those questions, which possibly could lead to even more questions. So what I came up with was, how has social media shaped the way we present ourselves to the world around us? Is the act of opening a Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or other social media feed the same as opening like a biography or an autobiography about the person? Is that different from, are things like Facebook, which collect both text and visual information about a person? How's that any different from a platform that's purely text-based like Twitter versus a platform that's purely visual in a lot of ways like Snapchat in its early days? And also, what would this story about a person that lives in this sort of untouchable digital realm, what would it look like if we tried to bring that back into the physical realm? How would it manifest it? Would it be in something like the form of a book or a series of images? Kind of like what would that look like? So these are kind of like the questions that I started to ask myself in hopes that it would lead me to what my ultimate goal is for this and what I was really trying to get at.
Yeah. I like those 4 questions. Open that Tiddler for a second.
Which one?
Yeah, the preliminary topic statement, thinking out loud. And if you change your little asterisks there to number signs, then we'll have question numbers that we can use as reference points.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that.
I couldn't get.
I see what you're doing.
Get it to work, so I ended up having to use.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, you're going You're doing the hard work.
I know, but yeah, I was dropping in the asterisks, and it wasn't converting over to like bullet points or numbered list for me.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I've got to like troubleshoot. I don't know if there's something. I was kind of fiddling with the TiddlyWiki a little bit in the back end, as I'm want to do.
Yeah, sure. So basically, you should be able to get rid of all the HTML in there and replace it with number signs instead of,
Yeah.
um, just pound signs, basically. And they
Yep.
should come out as numbered lists. You need a, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I love question one. I think that's really a fascinating question. And that in and of itself is a thesis and a book, and there's like tons of literature on that you could deal with.
Yep.
You may find that it's not that, that's a big question. It might not be that as an interesting thing. I think number
Yeah.
two is kind of cool, although I'm not exactly sure how you'd sort of move that idea forward.
Yeah.
Three is three sets you up for a really nice comparison, and comparisons are always a little easier sometimes to do because you've got something to bounce off of. You've got the yin and the
Yep.
yang. It's kind of nice to have that. Four is interesting. Four is really interesting, and that could lead itself to a really kind of cool project. You
Yeah.
can imagine like taking a couple of people's Facebook presence or Twitter presence and generating some kind of a physical, I don't know. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Either like some sort of designed physical item, or some sort of, I don't know whether it would be like very fine art or very like graphics design,
Mm-hmm.
application
Yeah.
design, like.
Yeah. There's all
But
sorts of places you can go with that. I think you're on the right track.
okay.
Um, Remind me of your timeline so I have a feeling for how quickly you have to move this forward.
Um, I'm gonna graduate in December.
Okay, yeah, so quickly. So we
Yeah.
can't, I was going to say, why don't you take a couple of weeks and read some books about this, but you don't really have that time.
Okay.
So there's, but what I see as a constant is that this is all focused in something about social media.
Yeah.
You want to pick apart those platforms. You want to sort of grab onto that.
Yeah.
Do you want to, in your gut, do you think you want to do not just, but do you want to do a read-write exercise where you read a bunch of stuff and write a bunch of stuff, or do you want to make something? That's gotta.
I want to make something.
I figured that.
I want to
Um,
make something that's like a practical application of like what I'm kind of digging into, and also I have this desire to be creative and make stuff to begin
yeah,
with.
good.
So
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you were still wanted to do that. I think
yeah,
that's what you do, and that makes perfect sense. I think there's all sorts of really cool work to be done. What I really like about, I think four is kind of cool, but in some ways, putting it into the digital world is, maybe interesting, maybe not so much, but
yeah,
possibly. But doing a sort of a reinterpretive thing, I'm not suggesting you do this, but you might imagine that somebody take Donald Trump's Twitter stream with whatever it is, however many tens of thousands of
yeah,
tweets he's made, and reinterpret that. And there's been a lot of work done with that. People have, because it's Trump, they've parsed every word they've made, so then you can kind of navigate his Twitter stream based on the words that he's used. So all the times he uses this or that or something. So you can basically reinterpret a Twitter stream. And Twitter is very cool to work with because it's data intensive and the numbers
yeah,
get kind of big and they make some cool things. So you could I don't know, there's all sorts of art or interpretive pieces that you could imagine based on people's Twitter streams.
yep,
So you could write some code or some interpretive, code versus interpretive frame. It's about the same thing. It's like code is art, basically.
Yep.
That you could then apply to multiple different people's Twitter streams, for example. So, there's Twitter's cool because it's got, you have lots of tweets to work with. They're all about the same size. They're easy to find. They're easy to get. They're easy to manipulate. They come encoded with a time dimension. So between tweets, there's a space that you could play with. There's all sorts of work to be done with a Twitter stream. So Facebook is much harder to work with as a data source because it's, I don't know, you know what I mean? A Facebook post doesn't have a inherent form.
Yeah.
So
And
Twitter,
there's a lot of like junk in between too. What's like a person versus
and you've got likes and comments, and Twitter is just like Twitter could be. I don't know. I'd encourage you to kind of look around at Twitter, and maybe do something to see what kind of art people have made out of Twitter.
Can I jump in for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
If anybody needs all the Trump tweets, I do have them in a database.
I know. I've got they're all over. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Also, since you're already playing in Tiddlywiki, I've been playing with. I've got a little. I've got some stuff that I've been playing with Tiddlywiki and Twitter. So I can ingest tweets into my wiki. I can push tweets into a wiki, and that's kind of interesting. But it's just got a really nice data structure, and you never, they're not going to be long. It's just so it's like as a, if you want to work with stuff. Again, Anna Jaffray, some of her projects would fit well with this. For example, she took one of the projects she presented in her job talk was she took all the covers of GQ, I think, Gentleman's Quarterly magazine, over, I don't know, 100 years or 50 years or whatever, took all their magazine covers, kind of stacked them all up on top of each other, and then drilled down to find the common themes. And then you run them like, fast speed. So you see all the covers emerge, and then you see what happens over time is that the covers kind of over time, they're all over the place, and then they keep kind of shifting until eventually they basically settle into a common form, which is a picture of a face kind of thing, and something like that. But you take like a big mass of data, you treat each entry as an object, and then you create some sort of an abstraction. And that seems to, you've been playing at that edge for as long as we've been talking about this project. And so I think Twitter would be cool. And, I'm not suggesting that you do Trump, although Trump is kind of cool and that would be fun. But, you could compare Trump and Hillary Clinton, for example, though she's not a very good tweeter, so it's not that interesting. But Twitter also gives you that nice comparison. So, Trump's the most famous Twitter person ever. There's the, if you want to go into politics, there's lots to do. I don't know if you do politics. There's the whole Arab Spring set of tweets and stuff like that. But there's just enormous Twitter, And so I think your next step, if that sounds like attractive, is to just start poking around and see what kinds of art and other interpretive pieces people have made out of Twitter streams. There's a Twitter API that allows you to bring down all the tweets of a person or all the whatever. There's all sorts of data hooks into Twitter that are readily available. And 100,000 tweets just is not a very big data file. I mean, it's big, but it's not like unmanageable. It's not like like if you're doing 100,000 YouTube videos, you're into petabytes in a sense. But Twitter is like nothing. Compared to other things. So if you're comfortable in that realm, do you ever play at the command line, like in any kind of coding level, or?
I have a little bit in my past life as a computer technician, but not some recent years.
Yeah.
Or once I started, it all would start to kind of come back.
Yeah, so if you've ever played at a Unix command line and done things, used like basic command lines like cut and grep and stuff like that, is that familiar to you at all?
Yeah.
Then, then you'll be able to manipulate a Twitter feed at sort of a gross level and then play with it at a visual level over time, and, throw them into a database and play with it and stuff like that. And that would be cool. It could be any Twitter feed. It doesn't really matter what it is. You might be able to do the same thing with an Instagram feed, which is nice because it comes inherently with a visual element to it. So Twitter's analysis, Twitter is going to be sort of text-based, which has its limitations and attractions. Anna Joffrey has some real interesting skills and tools and tips and techniques for doing visual analysis, basically of Instagram posts. Same thing, and again, you're working with essentially photographs, but they're not very large, so you could, play with a huge Instagram stream and play with it. That sounds cool. Yeah, I'd look at what other people have done and, spend a week or so scoping that out and see if you can find 10 examples of Twitter art or Instagram art where the objects are the tweets or the posts, and then the art is the combination, the sort of the collection, and then what would that be called? The synthesis and then the analysis kind of pieces. You bring them all together and then chop them up and see what you get. But so you're not looking at post by post, but you're looking at commonalities across posts or across tweets. It's cool. Yeah, excellent, great. So if that makes sense, then I'd kind of move in that direction.
All right, yeah, that does make sense, and that's kind of where I was heading, was some sort of physical output or some sort of project. And
yeah, physical would be cool. I've always had this idea of like Instagram. You take like 1,000 Instagram posts and you loop them all together in a film that runs really quickly, so you see them all fly by and see if you can gather any meaning from seeing 1,000 Instagram. 1,000 Instagram posts that you experience in 20 seconds or something.
Yeah.
So it kind of turns it in. So you're just playing with the form and format and seeing if you can derive meaning from that. You should definitely write a kind of a note about that and share it with me and with Anna Joffrey.
Okay.
Because this is really her thing. So, and if you'd like, maybe next, send her a note and see, and either set up a time to talk to her or invite her to come to one of the sync sessions.
Okay.
That would be a good next step. All right.
All right.
Hey, yeah. Hello, Lindsay. Hello, Jane. Hello, James. So that's Jane, right? I didn't click on that. Yes, it is. So Lindsay, what's up with you?
Not a ton.
Did you have objectives for the evening, or were you just here to listen?
Just listening.
Okay. Jane, how about you? Your audio's off.
Oh, there we go.
Yep,
okay,
thanks.
Better.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
So yeah, I have some ideas for a topic, and I just want to figure out how to connect it a little bit better to information design.
Mm-hmm.
So this, my daughter's just gone off to college, and in this whole process of this past year,
where is she?
She is at University of New Hampshire.
Okay.
And so for the course of this past year, I've been working with her and a whole bunch of teenagers that she has brought home like little orphans to help them figure out what they might major in. And in my work, I help engineers in their career and figure out, for them what makes sense at a graduate level. But at the undergraduate level, I was really surprised at how few resources there were that were consistent about how to figure out your major. And so that really got me. And I ended up using a method with some of the kids that my daughter brought home who didn't know what they wanted to study, to help them kind of zoom in on what they might be interested in pursuing, and how to figure out what that degree is after they figure out what they like, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in potentially making a framework or an approach that someone might consider to be able to zero in on what they want to study. And so it's information based, and I'm thinking, there also can be a blog or something involved where it's a resource like a center point for people to go to, but have this methodology and some supporting documents and articles there, hosted there. So the more that I looked into this, I've been printed about 35 journal articles now and have been reviewing those. There's a lot of information out there about, doing inventories and things like that. But it seemed like today, the people, at least the kids that I talked to so far, and I've tried this with between family members and kind of the kids my daughter brought home. I would say it was about 11 kids now, where I've kind of sat with them and talked to them about what they're interested in, and try to kind of triangularize down to what that means and what it translates to. There's not a lot of methods out there that you can say, well, I'm here on this continuum and I want to try these things to come close to it, And I'm also seeing that kids are wanting to do degrees that are multiple in nature. So they want some primary degree and then a tangential minor, because they're worried about employability and other things like that. So I thought the SUNY system has such rich choices. There's so many schools in the system, and there's so many cool avenues you can take things, across New York. That might be a good framework too, to consider. I mean, I really wanted my daughter, I know from our experience, to like what she's doing initially, but have it have enough opening to it that, you can go different directions with that as a basis. And the cost of school and all these other factors making, I think, kids freak out. They just know they have to pick something right the first time. Not like, in the 80s when I was doing my undergraduate degree and schools actually said to you, just come here and we'll help you figure it out. I don't think people can afford to do that anymore. So I'm really interested
Well,
in.
I'm not sure that they can or can't, but I think they can. So
Yeah, true.
Right about that.
True.
Yeah, that's so here's some initial thoughts off the top
Okay.
of my head.
Okay.
I think the connection to the SUNY system is a really interesting potential hook.
Okay.
Sort of, again, along the lines of what we were just discussing with Ken, it provides a nice set of boundaries.
Okay.
You basically have 64 campuses, 32 campuses, and 32 community colleges, and they each have X number of majors, and so basically there's like a fixed body.
Web sphere, yeah, okay.
And that's like, okay, there's nice boundaries conditions around that. Using the majors, for example, so that's really attractive. You might find an interesting audience for the thing that you eventually make, and you might even generate some level of support or interest in the system itself, which may or may not be useful to you. That's like just another idea, but you might, it's just kind of nice, and then it ties in sort of on a public goods level, combined with the Excelsior Scholarship Program, the concept of free SUNY tuition for New York State residents. Then why don't we do the same? Why don't we, in addition, provide some useful resources to help people pick, whatever. It's got a nice.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
And you might, as a ready resource, connect to like college admissions counselors in the system, or faculty, maybe faculty or deans or undergraduate, so there might be like ways to draw on the system itself to contribute to your background research. In terms of the information design, you might start thinking about platforms. It feels like this should be a digital resource in which people enter in and make choices that guide them this way or that way. So it's like navigating a path. That feels digital to me. It doesn't feel like things I might have used, which is text-based and encyclopedia, that kind of thing. But
Yeah, or like a Kajabi where, you could identify where you are on a continuum and follow,
exactly right. So you
process, right.
sort of, and then it begins, and I know that you've got some data structure in your past experience, database thinking,
Right,
ways of
right.
thinking. So it begins to feel like an Amazon site, click, here's all the list of majors. Let's begin to narrow it down. And you might integrate some sort of standard personality test kinds of items to give people, so they might come in based on their personality test, and then it yields like a major picker, sort of like there's presidential candidate pickers. How do you feel about this issue, that issue, this issue? Like, do you want to? Are you interested in dissecting frogs or writing plays or
Yeah,
that
there's
kind of thing? And then that's like, okay, I never want to see blood. Okay, well then blood-based majors. But that's
I think
those
there's
kinds of things that are so you might
Yeah.
generate that kind of like QA interactive thing, and of course people can always go back and change their. So it begins to have a gamification aspect to it, which is really an information design thing, and that's kind of cool. It's because it's picking it's not that it's a game that you're playing for enjoyment, but it's a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Yeah, I
so
have found there's some sites, some tools like that I would call interactive tools. So
Yeah.
I was focusing on the like the end right prior to that, which is kind of them trying to get their head around how to select a major, and so I could certainly point at tools that exist. There's something called Major Match.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wrote already, and other things that are out there. So
what's the matter with those, or what do you find
there's
wanting?
nothing wrong with those. I don't want to actually write those tools. I want to actually try to put a structure around the thinking of how to go about selecting your major. I think that's the piece that's missing in what I was seeing with these kids and looking on the internet. There's so much variation in what people do. There's kids who know nothing and they just, want to, open a book and pick something out of a book and not know necessarily what it is, and because it sounds good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's kids who were, born knowing they wanted to be a doctor, and so there's this whole, dichotomy or whatever you call it, a continuum, right, of people. And if you could find yourself on it and then have a process say, all right, based on where you are in this continuum, you might consider this, and this as your next step, just so you have something to hold on to.
Isn't that a major match?
The major match is more like the inventory thing, where it's like, do you like blood, like you were just describing, and there's a lot of that out there. But it comes back, some of it, major match, like I saw one of the sample reports, it's kind of like you should be a financier or a print maker, like a bookmaker. And you're like, huh? Like what do those two things have together,
Mm-hmm.
So
I see. Okay.
Trying to refine it some more. It's, it's certainly an area of passion for me. I got pretty involved in it with these kids, and I trying it out on people when I hear them even going to grad school at work. I think there's, maybe a couple models to consider. So let me try to flesh it out a little bit more. And then right now the info design piece seems like the blog with some.
Well, I'm not sure I get the blog, to be honest. To me, when I hear blog, I hear continuous contribution over time.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that's what you meant.
Yeah, so maybe.
I feel this is an app, so that prospective users can enter it in at any time, whereas a blog, you come in at a point in time, and there's material that's been there before, and there's material that will come after. But wherever you come in, you come into the blog, and it's a static kind of thing. Whereas, you come in at a moment in time and there's a past and a future of the blog. Whereas I think what you're talking about is you come into an app and you begin to interact with it and it begins to respond to you based on what it learns about you. So it's sort of more of an artificial intelligence / app kind of thing that I heard you describing, as opposed to a continuous information stream.
I know my limitation though as a programmer, so I don't think I could develop something like an app.
Well, you could develop the prospectus for an app. You could develop a prototype. You could develop the proposal that would then potentially in real life or not get turned over to a programming team that would then be able to build it. So your job as a designer is to design it, not to build it. Unless you want to be an app builder, but it's not really an app program. I mean, I can help you with prototypes.
Let me think it through some more then.
Yeah. It's as a blog, it could be not as a blog, but as a resource, a web resource.
Yeah, like a website. Yeah.
Then, I mean, that has its pluses and minuses. It's, sorry. I'm in a hospital, not a prison. And they're not going to kick me out anyway. So a resource that is a snapshot because you don't want to commit to maintaining something. It just wants to be a snapshot. It's like, okay, so you want to go to college, what's out there to help you pick a major kind of thing? And here's like the 10 best websites, and here's the 5 tools, and here's the link to Kathy, the college counselor website, who's there to respond to your questions. But that I don't know, that doesn't sound like something you'd want to do. It doesn't sound like, I mean, that's a gathering process, and it seems that you want to build something,
a model,
something more better.
Okay.
I'm not quite getting the model thing, to be honest, like what it is exactly that you're trying to do there.
Okay.
I don't know that are you trying to create like a personality test that the outcome of which
No.
I didn't think so.
I think there's people in different stages of readiness to figure out what their major is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sort of that approach where you learn about yourself first and what you like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you examine that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one path you could take. Another one is 3 things you like, and you want to sort of triangularize around those 3 things to figure out how that's a degree,
Mm-hmm.
or translate to a degree and a minor or something. And there's also people who have no idea what they're interested in and might want to do the inventory route,
Mm-hmm.
and some of those things because they don't have any role model at home or anybody with a career they're interested in. And then sort of the last group was the people who kind of had a life experience that influenced them, like
Mm-hmm.
they had an injury or something, and that caused them to want to be a physical therapist.
Right.
So there's kind of like different ways people enter the zone, and I don't see anything out there that's like, oh, if you're here, then do this. So it's trying to say, like, almost, picture it like a graphic of some sort that informs them, like, where you are in the journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Just, step onto the board here.
Mm-hmm.
And here's some structure to follow, so you're not freaked out that you have no idea what to do.
Right. That has a game aspect to it.
Yeah.
Gamification aspect, in that it's a series of choices, a series of experiences, a series of routes that you might take. What resources are out there for high school guidance counselors to help their students go into college to pick majors?
they are, from my knowledge, they're using like the Barron's and the Princeton Review and
Well,
US.
those are for to help them pick out colleges, but not to pick out majors.
Yeah, so
That's interesting. Yeah.
all that they did in my daughter's school, and it was, blue ribbon school, it wasn't a bad place to go. It was just that they said, what are you good at in school? What are your grades the best in? What did you like the best for a subject?
So not much.
Yeah, they didn't even
Yeah.
ask,
Right.
Myers-Briggs or anything like that. They were just kind of like, do you know what you want to do? And she said, I think I like this. And they were like, great, do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty common.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely onto something.
Just trying to narrow it a little. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the sort of the next step, you said you've got 35 articles or whatever that you found. Are those articles about how to pick a major, or are those articles about how to help people pick a major?
Both. I purposely am trying to look at it from different avenues. Learn that from your WebSphere course, right? So I'm trying to bound it a little bit, right?
Yep, exactly, right. I think that at the end of the day, you're basically constructing an app.
Okay.
It seems to me, from what you've described so far, that you've got this image of high school kids heading off to college next year. So high school seniors-ish.
They're like actually juniors, right?
Yeah. So like juniors in the spring, or maybe even now, juniors in the fall, like because they got to pick a college based on a major at some level.
Yeah, and they haven't done SATs yet, right?
Right. So there's so you've got this image of these floating kids out there who are prospective users of the app, and you want them to use the app. Students come in, the way you described it is they pick one or two or three or four scenarios that match wherever they are, like the life experience, the things they like, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and they go through a process, and then at the end of it, they put some inputs in, and the output is a list of majors kind of thing, or something like that. That's an app.
Right.
So maybe one way to narrow it is, you build use cases, or you use the concept of use cases in your work?
Yeah.
So you might begin to build a use case, which would give you the feeling of, the actor comes in, it's a high school student, they provide me some inputs, the system churns it up and generates does X, Y, and Z and generates an output. That's a use case, and then that might help you begin to identify the 4 paths, and you just pick a random number of, more than 2 paths, fewer than 50. 4 is a nice number, 5 max, 3 min, 5 max kind of thing. So, because you can't have much, 3 is, I don't know, 4 looks nice on a phone screen. So, I mean, it's like affordance space, maybe 6, right? But 4 is about right, because otherwise you're never going to graduate. And so at least you sort of have a feel for where that's going to go, and then you begin to think through what the design characteristics are, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to do. And if you kind of push that sort of quickly, then you'd figure out if you're going to build a prototype, or you're going to build a design document, or you're going to build a prospectus or a specification, what it is you're actually going to do. And you might say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn some app prototyping, and I'm just going to build a prototype, which is great. It's not going to work. But I don't think you want to get into the business of building an actual app that actually works. That's
no, and if I end up wanting to do this for like a retirement career thing, I know that I'd rather maintain a site than
an app. Yeah. So if you're thinking about becoming a college counselor type of person, that's a whole different story. then what you're doing is, okay, so now you're imagining a career in a sense, or
Right.
somebody else who's going to fulfill this role, and you want to build a resource for that person to use. And now you're not really,
Consulting, yeah.
it's not a direct service to the student. It's more of a resource for the counselor to say, oh, I've got this client. This is the path that this person follows. So this is the suggested path for you. So you're building a resource for the college counselor, not for the prospective high school student. Totally different use case, right?
Yeah, all right, let me think it through some more.
And so that's a really interesting angle. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it as a secondary. That would
I
fit
like that
your
better.
Yeah, that would fit your model a lot better, right? It's not a direct service, it's a guide for people like you.
Yeah.
That's
High school
interesting. Or
counselor.
maybe even a guide for high school counselors.
Right,
That's interesting.
right.
And then that
There's no
does
problem
become a
with the
site.
student seeing it either. It's just that the counselor,
Yeah, but your sense is from your experiences that really what the students need is guidance, and they need someone like you to talk to them, but someone like you needs to know what to say to them.
right,
That's a different kind of resource. Yeah, and given that you're now building for essentially mothers or guidance counselors, people in their 40s, 50s,
yeah,
now we're talking website, not an app.
true,
Right? And
true.
that's something that you could build and then maintain if you wanted to, or at least lay out a process for how you would build it and maintain it.
Okay,
That's cool. That's really nice. I like that.
okay, I like that
Yeah,
better.
that's a whole different angle. So this is a productive conversation. We came up with two radically different.
Sorry, everybody else.
Yeah, no, it's good because it just that's how it works.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Does that help you out a little bit?
Yes, very much,
Good.
thank you.
Yeah. James, you still there? And or you're providing a service, right? You got nothing to say.
Oh, I'm still here.
Yeah, I know. But did you want to talk about your project, or not, you got nothing on that tonight?
I got some stuff on it.
I'm not asking if you've done anything. I just did you have questions. I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, no, not really.
I'm used to it by now. So yeah, I came up with a couple of questions
Okay.
that I'm going to probably do it on. First one would be, can someone effectively create a live broadcast system that's affordable? So that's one of the questions. I already know the answer to it.
So that's not a question.
Well, no, but I'm going over the stuff I'm
Yeah.
doing. And the next question would be, what would be said limitations on such a setup, which we already know that.
Right.
And overall, I think the project's probably going to be a instruction manual on how the system was developed and how to use it, and see if a non-technical person can manage to use the setup.
It's a toolkit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Right direction, wrong direction?
No, absolutely right direction. It's a toolkit and a guide,
Yep.
and pretty much sort of a website and a static kind of thing. So it's done. So you're not creating something that's going to be maintained and built. It's just going to be done, and then it will be out of date in 3 years, which is fine.
It can be a dynamic one because technology is always changing.
Yeah.
If
But-
I want to update it, that's a whole different story.
But let's build it as something static.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's done.
Yep.
Circa 2017, state of the art, and know it's got a lifetime, which is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't frame these things as questions. I would frame this as a toolkit. Like when you get a toolkit, the question is not, is it possible for you to build a house? It's like, this is how you build your house.
Okay.
You know what you're after. You know it's possible. So let's not pretend they're questions. This is just the how-to.
Okay.
It's like, okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to start the process of everything.
Yeah, no, the end goal is a podcast studio in a box for a college professor who's got a graduate student to produce the podcast for him.
Pretty much.
So it's not this. I'm not sitting with my laptop making a podcast because there's all limitations to that. That's a perfect good model, but that's not what you're doing. You're doing something. You're like, so you want to make a podcast that's better than what you can do by yourself. How do you do it?
Okay. Well, the high production value with no editing involved.
High production value low production costs, but more than you can do at your desktop.
Correct. Or on your phone.
Yeah, or on your phone or by yourself. It's like $1,000 in a graduate assistant. How do you do it?
Okay.
Perfect. It's like a recipe. Yeah. No, and that's great because you did it, and that's cool. It's like really good.
Okay.
So yeah. And then an instruction manual for the Michelle Tuckers of the world.
Yep.
Of what they need to order and how they actually train themselves to do it.
Okay.
And it will be perfectly useful for like 3 years, and then the stuff will catch up, and they'll have to read, and I'll have another student fix it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, good. That
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Lindsay, you had an interesting question about licensing that we exchanged some emails on, but yeah, so
Yes.
Lindsay's project is pretty cool. If I remembered correctly, it's basically making a textbook.
Yep.
I shouldn't say textbook, right? It's a course resource for a calculus class. An OER for a calculus class, an open educational resource for college level calculus class based in Tiddlywiki.
Yeah, an interactive OER. Yeah.
Yeah. I owe you an email, but I will be pointing you to something called ePubble, which takes an EPUB. So if you find a calculus book that's licensed appropriately in an EPUB form, then there's a suite of tools that just ingests them automatically into Tiddlywiki.
Perfect.
So then every chunk that basically every paragraph becomes its own tiddler. And there's a whole series of list fields that you can use to generate a chapter, and you can get into the resource at any level. So you don't have to do that yourself.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. I have a feeling that an EPUB calculus book is going to be tough to come by because of the math. So, we may be looking at, I don't know what we're looking at, but so.
I'm sure I can write some script that at least parses the text out, and then I can manually add in the formulas.
Yeah, that manually is what we're trying to avoid, but.
There are programs I use in my business where I can scan pages and it'll translate it over to a Word document, if that helps.
Yeah, but we're looking at math formulas.
It'll do numbers and everything.
It doesn't do the formulas.
I'll try it and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much unlikely. That's been the holy grail in math publishing for a long time. So the Tiddlywiki KTech kind of thing is pretty cool because it uses the LaTeX code, which is the professional standard. So finding an EPUB book that's, you might have to find a LaTeX book or something. I don't know, but you'll poke around and see what you find, and we'll see what happens. So, yeah. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful for everybody. And we will meet again. I think we're scheduled for next Wednesday. Monday is Labor Day. But feel free, if you've got questions in the meantime, to be in touch, and I'll look forward to seeing preliminary statements start to roll in. So don't forget to submit them so we can keep you on track.
How are we submitting them?
I think I made Blackboard Dropboxes, didn't I?
Well, you know what? I honestly haven't even gone into Blackboard.
Yeah, I think
That
I
makes
did,
sense.
believe it or not. I mean, that's how unlike me, right? But I think I did. Oh, there's a link. It says submit assignments here. Unbelievable. There it is. Submit assignments here in Blackboard. Look at that. It's not much, but it's something.
Yeah, I'm so used to not going to Blackboard for your classes. I didn't
Yeah, I
even
know.
think
I
of
can't
it.
believe I know. It's me too. I always forget.
This is highly unusual.
Highly unusual, yeah, but there's not much there. It just says see the course wiki. But I think all these course wiki links are actually like not just generic, but to the specific tiddler, which is, I must have had some time on my hands. Look at
Fancy.
that. Yeah, it's pretty fancy, isn't it? Yeah, so that's where they go. And the reason I did that is just because in the past the thesis hasn't had a really good structure, and I think we've not served our students well. So I'm trying to do slightly better by this group than we have in the past to give people a serious structure so that they actually know how to get through this if they're going to graduate in December. So there it is.
Thanks.
All righty, take care. See y'all. Have a good whenever, and we'll see you next week if you're interested.
Bye.
Okay, take care. Thanks, James. And thanks for posting it, James. It worked well.
Yeah, I mean, I had no problem. It took about 10 minutes for it to update itself
In the Tiddly spot or on YouTube?
in the tiddly spot.
It that's
wasn't-
weird. Okay. It's usually instant. That's very strange. Oh, I don't know. That's weird. Huh.
It showed up because I did it like 5 times. Like, why isn't that showing up? Then finally just showed up.
That's bizarre. Let me know if that happens again, and then I'll watch you do it so I can understand it.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay. Catch y'all later. Bye now.